Here to discuss the role of comedians in today's political discourse, please welcome writer, director, and comedian W. Kamau Bell, with Jemele Hill, contributing writer at The Atlantic.
We're on live. My mom's watching.
I
know you're like, HR to Kamau, this is going to be a hard pivot. All right, here we go, everybody.
And then to Mike Pence.
And then to Mike Pence. Yeah, well, me and Mike Pence hang out, so that's people don't know that.
Yeah, I figured as much.
My 88-year-old mom told me to say you're her favorite sports reporter.
Aww.
Yeah.
I am tempted to ask how many other sports reporters your mom might know, but that's okay.
No, she's ESPN. She's in it.
abreast?
She's in it.
Okay.
She's in it. Yeah, no,
Right.
But also, yeah.
Okay. Well, I promise we did not script this in the sense of we were at the Atlantic's VIP reception last night, and the news circulated about Jimmy Kimmel. And
I've never seen so many scared rich white people before in my life. Like the room was just filled with like white rich people going, I was like, if they're scared.
So this, in that respect, that this conversation is extremely timely. We know that Stephen Colbert got canceled. Now Jimmy Kimmel's show is pulled indefinitely.
Mm-hmm.
So speak for comedians everywhere, Kamau.
Okay, first of all, I will speak for comedians everywhere with a subset of not comedians in the Joe Rogan universe.
Okay.
So I will not be speaking for them. I'll be speaking at them because they did this to us, but not for them.
Okay. But what are some of your general thoughts about what this means for your profession?
So let's be clear that like the stand-up comedy as we all understand it, the modern era stand-up comedy only existed in America because of free speech. It was invented here, stand-up comedy the way the world understands it, grew up in America because of freedom of speech. And then the early comedians in the modern era, Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Dick Gregory, fought the battles, some of whom got arrested. Lenny Bruce got arrested in San Francisco over fighting the battle for being a stand-up comedian who's free to say what you want to say. So if we are the powers that be, Trump and the Trumpettes, have decided that comedians can't say what they want to say anymore, they're fundamentally redefining America as a place that I don't want to live. Forget want to be a comedian, but it's not, that's a fundamental right. I work for the ACLU too, so it's a fundamental right that if this country does not have free speech, we're not America. And I also think it's funny, Jimmy Kimmel's not exactly young Lenny Bruce, you know what I mean? Like it's, so if you're saying that guy can't do it, maybe I should have put on a different shirt. Like what are we, we're saying that not even the lightest touch is acceptable.
So MS is, to piggyback off what you said, MSNBC commentator Chris Hayes, he posted something on social media last night in the wake of this that really struck me. He noted, and I'm just paraphrasing here, that countries where comedians are under attack aren't exactly the countries you want to live in. And so for us as an audience, what should we be taking away from this, seeing what has happened to Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, and not just those two, but we've seen a number of professors, a number of teachers, like people across professions that are not in the limelight. People are losing their job based off what they have said about Charlie Kirk. And so what should we as an audience be taking away from this in general?
So let's be clear that at the same time that's happening, that, it's I want to be clear, obviously, Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert are going to be fine. Don't worry, they're rich. They will lose their jobs, but it's a chilling effect that if you're the next person to get one of those jobs, you go, oh, this is now the new area in which I'm allowed to play in. At the same time, as we all know, even in this city, I'm sure, ICE is rounding up anybody who's less brown than us, you know what I mean? They are rounding up people, whether they're citizens or not, whether they're here legally or not, and kidnapping them off the streets. So there's from the top and from the bottom, we're being pushed. And those of us who might be defined as like not as privileged as Jimmy Kimmel, but not somebody who could be rounded up by ICE, we're being encouraged to just sort of like, it'll be fine. We're being encouraged to just put our heads down and just sort of hope that like they won't keep squeezing that. but eventually, that's how it always works. They keep squeezing it until they get to the rest of us. And so I think this is right now, it's weird to think of like Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert as like the canaries in the coal mine. But if they're telling us we're not afraid of rich white men, what can the rest of us do? What can we expect them to treat the rest of us if we say the wrong thing on social media or if we make the wrong joke in front of the wrong person? How can we expect that we're going to get through the day every day and be able to live our lives the way we want to if they're not afraid of going after the rich white guys? You're
on Substack, by the way. Make sure if you are on Substack to support the work that you're doing there. And you mentioned this a moment ago. You talked about the Joe Rogan universe, right? And so one of the brilliant pieces that you had on your Substack was called "Comedians Are (parentheses) Stupid People Too."
Yeah.
And you noted the impact that someone like Joe Rogan and Theo Von, comedians who have been now cast as political journalists. So what does that... I know, I almost
Good
had to
job
laugh
there, New York Times.
I almost had to laugh even saying it, but because now they have been entrusted as people, the audience, I guess, look for political commentary.
Yeah.
What exactly, or how much of a influence is that having about how we are dissecting and thinking about politics?
I mean, we've sort of lost track of what actual intellect is in this country. If you follow my work, you will regularly see people go, "You're smart." I go, "No, I'm smart for a comedian." And I'm not putting myself down. I'm just saying if I was really smart, I wouldn't have chosen comedian. I got into Penn, I didn't graduate. And so the minute any comedian is sort of telling you how to think about the world, and there's not punchlines there, because that's what you're supposed to be there for, you should immediately be suspicious. Especially if that comedian's not like Dick Gregory. So to me, I've never sort of wanted to sort of, at this point, talk about who's not funny or I don't like your jokes. Everybody has different preferences. I don't have to like your act for you to do it. But when I saw, and I did Joe Rogan's podcast years ago before the pandemic, but I did it twice, and the second time I was like, I don't know about all this. Mm-hmm. And before he was in Austin, before he got Austin brain. The minute that the night before the election chose that moment to endorse Trump in the most cowardly way possible, where clearly somebody was like, "Hey Joe, we're gonna need that Trump endorsement." And so he did it at the last possible minute. I was like, oh, he's been bought. Now, the funny thing is he's been bought and made good money, but then all those comedians under them who have been bought, I don't think you made that good money. You have sold your soul for very little, and people I follow the comedy blogosphere and the YouTube a lot. Their audiences are mad at them. People are like, I showed up to Joe Rogan for pot and aliens and conspiracy theories. Can you please get back to that, Joe Rogan? I showed up for Theo Von to tell ridiculous stories about things he didn't do when he was a kid in Louisiana. I didn't show up for this. And so even their own audiences are turning on them. And people don't realize that their audiences are turning on them because they don't actually want to hear about Trump every other day. They came to them for comedy. And so for me, as somebody who actually has, like the Atlantic Party, somebody called me a journalist. I was like, whoa. I worked at CNN for 7 years. I use the tools of journalism all the time. I love journalism. I love journalists. But I'm always pointing to those people. I'm not saying I'm the guy. And so I think the more that we act like everybody gets a seat at the table and everybody can weigh in on everything, the worse we're making discourse in this country.
That reminded me of a comment I saw on social media once where somebody said, there's a reason why in school we were separated in class. There's a reason why we had classes for certain people, classes for other people.
Yes.
We weren't all meant to be together in the same class.
No, we're not, and we're not all expected to have the same level of knowledge and the same level of sensitivity. It's almost like diversity is good, anyway. It's almost like diversity of ideas actually makes things better, diversity of people. And I think that it is so gross what Joe Rogan has done, not only to discourse in this country, but just to comedy. Like people, I've heard, again, these are people who like Joe and perform at his club in Austin. And they say every performer on stage, you gotta do your I hate transsexuals joke. You gotta do that. You gotta do your joke where you use the N-word even though you're not black. You gotta do that. Like he has made comedy worse again.
So, given what his influence is now in the political sphere, him, Theo Von, whoever else who you want to put in that category on that side of things.
Did you see that picture of Theo Von at dinner with Ivanka
I did,
and Jared
yeah.
Kushner?
I didn't. Well, I think I saw it on your Substack.
That's right. Yeah. Looking like they said, if you finish your plate, you can have dessert. Like, why would you give your power away? Like, I wouldn't. There have been. I will just say this. There have been times where, like at one point, the Biden administration reached out to me about doing something, and I was like, no, I don't want to be a comedian who looks like they're on your team. I lose my power then. I've never been to an inauguration, and if I went, I don't want to sit in the front row. Because I don't want that I'm immediately compromised if I look like I'm here to toe your company line.
So along those same lines, is it fair that today, in the wake of what we've seen happen to Jimmy Kimmel, a lot of people are blaming Joe Rogan and the likes of Theo Von along that political spectrum and saying, because you guys platformed Trump and the beliefs of MAGA, you've now made this worse off for all comedians because of what you have helped usher in the door. Do you think that's a fair comparison? Fair criticism, excuse me.
Yes.
Why?
There was this thing, and I've seen other comedians say this. I've seen people who I respect say this, like, Joe Rogan talks to everybody. He doesn't talk to everybody. First of all, he barely even talks to anybody who's not white, especially if they're not a comedian. So I think we get this idea that, and you see it, Ezra Klein talking to Ben Shapiro, and I think people see this as like two separate people, and I see it as two white guys who are basically endorsing white supremacy. When they're sitting there going, we're coming across difference, when it's like, I don't see the difference as profoundly as you see the difference. And so for me, the idea that we have decided, first of all, stop taking comedians that seriously. Stop thinking that just because people make a lot of money means they have a lot of brains. As we've seen in this country, that is not how that works, based on who's running the country right now. And I think that a lot of this comes from the run towards, like Joe Rogan got the Spotify deal because the thing that Joe did was he built up a podcast when there was no such thing as podcasting. That is the thing we could sit down and talk to him about. He knows a lot about that. But then Spotify, as they do in music, then controls how that gets pushed into your feed. And we have given him all this money, so now it's in front of you. And meanwhile, it is pushing out the other people, which is why I'm proud to see if somebody like, and I don't know him, but like Josh Johnson, who's like, I'm just gonna do an end run around this whole business. I'm gonna have a job at The Daily Show, but then every week I'm putting up an ungodly amount of stand-up comedy on YouTube, and I would be jealous if he wasn't so good, as a way to go, because I'm not gonna be in that Spotify algorithm. I have to create my own algorithm. And so that's why I went to Substack. I was like, I gotta create my own algorithm, because the current ways in which this business promotes who they promote, it's very clear. It's not about who is good, it's about who's easiest to work with and promotes the agenda that I would like them to promote.
So as somebody who considers themselves an agendaless comedian, in the sense of like you're not trying to toe anybody's particular line.
I have my agenda.
Well, your agenda.
In my community's
but someone
agenda.
else's agenda.
But I don't want to, if I was ever on TV and it says DNC comedian W. Kamau Bell, I have messed up. Something's gone wrong. No, I have an agenda I live in Oakland. I got an Oakland agenda. I got a Bay Area agenda. I got a Black people agenda. I got a LGBTQ plus agenda. I got a immigrants agenda. I have an agenda, but those agendas don't all generally line up with the mainstream agenda.
Okay, so how do you, as somebody who traffics in comedy, but the truth, the foundation of your comedy is true. So how do you navigate these spaces knowing that what your agenda is not right now the agenda that is profitable or people that consider to be profitable? So,
I don't know if everybody can see this. I'm wearing a shirt that says 34 felonies are not presidential. So this morning I pulled this, I just got it. It's from Mahogany Mommies, Black woman-owned company. Yes, I'm doing a commercial. So I say, send me some new, I love her, send me some new stuff. She sends me, I opened them this morning at my hotel, and I'm like, whoa, am I wearing this to the Atlantic Festival? There's a moment that I have regularly that is like, am I about to do this thing? Am I about to say this thing? Am I about to put myself out there like that? And then I think about my 88-year-old mom who grew up in Indianapolis before schools were integrated. And when she got to high school and they integrated the schools, they put all the black kids in remedial English. And she always says, by the end of the year, I was in advanced English. They didn't think we could read. And I think about then I also think about my three daughters, 14, 7, and 10. When I think about the black people as a whole, every generation, our responsibility as black folks, because I'm also a black person, as we talked about backstage. That's a joke, everybody, relax. They talked about it? I think about my role as a black person. Every generation as a black person, especially with any level of privilege, your job is to pass the black baton on to the next generation and make sure it's fucking lighter than when you got it. That's 100% your job. My mom went through everything she went through. It was definitely lighter when she gave it to me after she went through the civil rights movement. It was definitely lighter. They thought it weighed nothing. Turned out it still had some weight on it. I'm thinking about passing it down to my daughter. My oldest daughter's 14, so she's about 5 years away from being in it. And it's a real good chance that it's gonna be a lot heavier when I hand it to her. And so every time I think about, should I say this thing? Should I call out Joe Rogan? Should I wear this t-shirt? I'm like, if you are who you say you are, you gotta do these things. Because at some point, it's gotta be about bigger than like, does this support my corporate brand? Is that Disney Plus meeting gonna go off my Zoom calendar if I? It's just gotta be bigger than that, and I have to trust that I will figure out a way to feed my family. But I absolutely think it's important that people are clear what side of this I'm on, so that when I go home, my kids know what side they're supposed to be on.
Speaking of feeding your family, you're currently on tour.
Yeah, it's called the Feed My Family Tour. No, it's not.
I mean, that actually would have worked.
I would have. It's not bad. It'll be the next one.
Okay.
But I mean, I didn't do stand-up I was out of stand-up for 7 years, and I thought I had retired because I just wasn't into, I was like doing, I don't know if you know, I directed a documentary. It was, anyway.
I did notice.
Yes. And I thought, I didn't want to travel the country doing that anymore after COVID and everything. And then my wife was like, I think you should go back to stand-up. I was like, why? She's like, because you're walking around the house talking to yourself and laughing. So, but I didn't want to go back into the clubs because I associate so much awfulness with a lot of the club scene now because of Rogan and so I started doing shows at the Berkeley Rep Berkeley, the Berkeley Rep in Berkeley, and like these little like 60-seat theater shows that would be sold out, and I built up my act in Berkeley one week at a time, and now the tour is called Who's With Me, and so I'm back, and I will be so I'm on the road doing seeing people face to face, talking to people, and these shows end up being sort of like almost like a revival meeting because it's like all the progressives and lefties in this area of the town come to this one night. We'll see the comedian, then we'll go plan the revolution. You know.
Well, but you started your current tour at the Kennedy Center.
Yes, I did.
Yes. And this is...
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to...
No. You did the right thing.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not sorry I brought that up, but just so it gives you an opportunity to respond to a lot of people who were critical because, as you all know, Donald Trump took over the Kennedy Center.
Well, he took it over the day before my gig. I'm sure he did it on purpose. Just thinking about me. So I was at the airport getting on the plane, and my phone goes off, and it's like somebody from the Kennedy Center like, call us, with that emoji that's like, And I'm getting on a plane, and so I find out when I get on the plane from my publicist that like Trump is taking it over. The Kennedy Center wants to know what you want to do. At that point, it was a national story. Do you want to do the show? And I was like, do I? What do you do in that moment? I'm not on the plane. Like, I'm flying to D.C., 1,500 tickets are sold, but am I supposed to, like, I'm not doing the thing? And at some point, a quote came out where he said we had to take it over because it had gotten too woke and too wokey. I was like, well, I'm doing the show now, because if you thought it was woke before, I'm about to woke my ass off in there. And I did. I went in there and you know, I
woke it up?
I woke it up. I was like, if it was woke before, I'm gonna close the woke down. So we woked all night and woke every day. I mean, it was. I mean, I referenced there was a drag queen rally out front that I talked about. I talked about Free DC. I called from everything but a child of God. I thought of every insulting thing I could think about J.D. Vance. And I did my act, and I praised the Kennedy Center as a place where we could do this. They used to have a drag queen in residence at the Kennedy Center. So for me, it was about like, I get that like Rihanna and Giddens canceled. I'm not saying everybody's gonna do what I do, but I think that I was at a different point in time, and it just happened. And as a comedian, it's written into my job description that I can say whatever the fuck I want to say. And then again, it's the black baton. I'm like, you really are who you say you are. Because if you really are who you say you are, you're gonna go in there and do it and try to make a noise as loud as possible. And if you're not, you're gonna say, I'm boycotting, and that's really just taking the night off from the revolution.
Mm. Well, given, that people are feeling pessimistic right now, what are the things, though, to pivot to something happier so we can end this conversation on a lighter note? What are the things
this was light. I didn't.
Well, I mean, it is. It is.
Did HR McMasters get more laughs than me? I just wanted
What are some of the things that that make you laugh these days, that give you joy, that... Oh man, I don't even know where this answer is going.
No. I'm just thinking about when I think about things that make me laugh. I have a 7-year-old who, because she was like one when COVID hit, she just wasn't socialized. So I don't know if anybody has a kid who's like around that age, but basically that's a generation of feral children. Because they weren't at the playground, they weren't hanging out, they weren't in kindergarten, they weren't in preschool. They were just like, ah! And she's completely fearless and unafraid and not afraid of grown-up conversation. She's not a fan of the president. She makes that clear.
Already?
Yeah. Okay. No, for sure.
Okay.
She will. Yeah. She'd get fired for what she says. And the joy with that kid, she is also like unafraid and uncompromising. You know the kind of kid where even if you tell them yes, they're still mad? Yeah. Can I have ice cream? Yeah. Ah, I'm still mad. That's the kind of kid she is, and she provides me with so much. But she's also not connected to the things that I'm worried about. And she provides me with so much joy every day and so much random acts of awesome insanity. And I'm not going to tell the whole story, but recently we have conversations in our house that are above her head, and she hears somebody say the N-word, and she goes, "What is the N-word?" And I go, and my wife, who's white, goes, "Kamau, take it away." And it was like, do I tell this kid, this 7-year-old, what the N-word is? Yeah, see, look how hard this is. You don't even want to... Don't worry, I'm not going to say it in front of all these white people. But we had a whole conversation about the N-word, and at the end, she's like, yeah, but what is it? Like, I was trying to use a word about blacks and no, but what is it? And so I was like, well, here we go. And so I told her what it is, I actually said it, and then she repeated it, but she repeated it in a way that was adorably it's like, she had a long E.
Okay, I was like, did she go hard E?
No, she went hard R, but long E. So
long
it was like,
E, okay.
And so I was like, and so she said it a few times, and she's like, I was like, yeah, but don't say that at school. She's like, I won't, but thank you. She just wanted to know what it was so she could lock it in her brain and have that as a thing that was in there. And I was like, who else is raising their children this way other than W. Kamau Bell, so.
And that is why we love you. Thank you, everybody, for this wonderful conversation. Make sure you go see him on tour, support his Substack, because as we know now, independence means everything. So,
and I have 3 children.
Yes, he got to feed his family. All right. Thank you all.